Hope you're having a good day. Don't forget, if you need more coffee or refreshments, they'll be in the back. But my name is Zach, and I'm the lead pastor here, and we're so glad that you gave church a chance. I know it could be scary walking into church, especially, maybe you have a background or something, but maybe you've been to church before, but we want to say thank you for coming today. So we've been in this teaching series called Purpose, and one of the most Googled things, and I know some of you can say this verbatim, but I'm just sharing this. One of the most Googled things in our zip code is outside of some adult stuff, but one of the most Googled questions is, what is the purpose of life? What is the meaning of life? And we talked about purpose over the past few weeks, talked about mission and different things, and that's what we're going to continue in this thing about what is the purpose of life. So glad that you're here. If you missed the previous messages, you can check those out, whether you're here or watching online right now all over the country, wherever. You can check out our previous messages at rockchurchspokane.com and then just watch, and then you can click on the message. But anyway, I want you to get out the program that you were given at the door. If you don't have one, we may have some more in the back. I know with so many people, we kind of ran out. So you can look at your neighbors, person sitting next to you. If you don't like them, look the other way, and you could view that. So anyway, so glad that you came today. So in this, as we're talking about what is the purpose of life, and really today we're going to focus on three things that God has given all of us. And God has given us all, He's given us time, right? We all have time. God's given us material things, right? We all have clothes on, and I'm so glad that you do. But we all have material things. But then also, God has given us money. And when it comes to church and things, when it comes to money, people freak out. You mention money in church, and everybody's like, oh, crap. And so, look, I'm just going to do something just real fast. Those of you watching online, we're just going to get it out of the way really fast, okay? Money. Okay, there. Y'all are not freaked out anymore, and it's all good. So, in this, there's inside that program is an insert, and it's got a section for message notes and action steps. We desire to be a place where you can be real. We desire to be a place where we can talk about things, whether it's here or in small group, talk about things and work through things, because we all don't have it together. And just so you know, if you are perfect, this isn't the place for you. No one got up and left, so that's pretty good. But really, we just desire to be a place where you can be real, come, relax, and also look at Scripture, see what God has to say. So don't forget, we desire for you to live on mission, and one way that you can contribute to a mission thing is right now, if you open up your cell phone, if you check into the Rock Church, we'll provide financially for Open Doors, which is a emergency family homeless shelter here in Spokane. And actually, next week we're going to give. I'm excited to say that next week for Open Doors, we're going to have Joe's here and things who started Open Doors, but we're going to give away. Check this out: 10% of what people gave in the month of November to Open Doors. Isn't that cool? But not to mention the other over 10% that our church gives away. We give away over 50% back out into the community and things. And we can do that because different people don't take salaries and all that. So it's exciting that I get to pastor a church who just loves mission, loves to give things away. So I'm thankful for that. But in this, on that insert, I want you to write down the answer to this question. We do this every week, and really this drives home some thought-provoking things. And so I want you to do this. And I know this question could be a little intense first thing, but I think it's fine. But I want you to write down, what is something in your life that you wasted? What is something in your life that you wasted? We've all done it, right? We've all done it. We've all, God's given us things. God, He's given us breath, right? God, He gives our heart rhythm and our heart beats, and God gave us that. But have you ever got to the end of your day and somebody said, "Oh, hey, it's good to see you. What did you do today?" And you're like, "Crap." Have you ever not remembered what you've done? For me, I remember I was 18. I got a debit card for the first time. It had my name on it. Do y'all remember that? Those of you who are old enough. Do you remember getting like a debit card or a credit card with your name on it, and you thought, "Oh, this is really important"? Anybody remember that? Well, I remember watching TV and being from Arkansas. It was hunting and fishing were a big deal. You did that. But me, I didn't do that much because I never knew my biological dad. Then my adopted dad the age difference was so much that we didn't really do those things. And I think God allowed that to happen because He knew I couldn't sit still hunting, right? And so, but fishing always intrigued me. Like to think, okay, you go to this big body of water, you got this little lure, you're going to throw it in, and you actually catch something. Well, some of us do, right? I remember watching TV and this infomercial comes on. This True Motion lure. I was up way too late. All these infomercials going. They had this True Motion lure, and it was a plastic silicone type fishing bait, and it had the shape of a fish, and it had cutouts in it. That way, whenever you reeled it in, it would swim. Guaranteed to catch a fish, all this. And I was watching, and I thought, this is a pretty good deal. I suck at fishing, and if I had this, we could catch something, right? And then they did it. They said, if you buy now, you get double, and then you just pay shipping and handling. Anybody else get sucked into that? All right, maybe there's just a few of us, and the rest of y'all are way too smart. But I got suckered in, and then I remember going to a dock and looking down and seeing fish. Has anybody ever done that? Went to a dock, you look down, you see fish there, and I throw that thing in, and I'm reeling. Nothing. Do it again. Nothing. And it's like, why did there have to be a blind fish right here? Surely he's not seeing it. But it didn't work for me. And so I don't know what you've wasted, but for me, I've wasted money on that, time on that. God He hasn't given me the patience to fish. Hunting, that just takes too much sitting. But fishing, I can go out there, I can throw it, then it's like there's no fish here, then I'm going over here. Then if we're out and somebody catches a fish, I'm that guy going by that other guy. Let's catch a fish. So, but I don't do that much. But although that may be funny, there's other things that I've wasted too. And I talked about last week how I've felt at times in my life where I've just wasted time as a follower of Jesus. And it's not that I didn't love Jesus. It's just that no one really taught me how to live my life. When it came to this discipleship thing, I didn't know all I was told was pray and live your life like God matters. And it's like, okay, I will do that, but what is that? And I remember just floundering for a while in my spiritual life. I don't know if you've experienced some of that, but if you're not a follower of Jesus, so glad that you're here and also watching online. Maybe you are a follower of Jesus, but you've just started this journey and you're still trying to figure this out. I'm glad you're here. But maybe you are a follower of Jesus, but you let weeks and weeks go by not living on purpose. And in this, what we're going to see, I want to be real sensitive to some of this. And I even shared the first service, and I shared with our everybody serving, and whenever we were praying here for church, for every one of you here walking in, we prayed for y'all, prayed for the kids area and all that. But when we were doing that, I shared about I get nervous when I preach. Believe it or not, I get nervous. But today I'm a little extra nervous because sometimes when we encounter the words of Jesus, it can be tough. Have you ever experienced that? And maybe you have opened up the Bible and you read where Jesus said, hey, to be my disciple, you have to give up everything. And maybe you were like me and said, surely Jesus didn't mean that, because that's a little too crazy. Or maybe whenever we see that we're supposed to live on purpose, for a purpose, and live missionally and share about what God has done, maybe you've read that kind of like me. Surely not me. But I don't know exactly what you're going through right now, but I'm really glad you're here. We're going to get into, in Luke chapter 12, we're going to read this. But you can follow along on the screen, or if you have the YouVersion Bible app, there's the message notes right there. You can follow through, or the insert. But in this, what we see is it's getting towards the end of Jesus' life here on earth, and Jesus, he talks about this, and he's just preparing people, I think, for what he's going to say. And he says, everything that's been out there, that's been said, everything that's been covered is going to be uncovered. I'm like, oh crap. Right? Has anybody ever said something they shouldn't have? Yeah. Then Jesus, he gets into this thing where he's talking about professing him, acknowledging Jesus as Lord in front of everybody. And I've been there when somebody said, are you a Christian? And I'm like, all right, I need to answer this where they don't think I'm one of these crazy people, but I want to answer it truthfully. And I've kind of stumbled before. And they were like, well, are you or aren't you? Right? Because no one wants to be known as that crazy religious freak, right? Because then they'll think we're weird. But maybe that's you, but we get into this point where Jesus tells this parable. And a parable is a story with a purpose. And we get in this, and we see in Luke chapter 12, starting in verse 13, he says, it says, someone from the crowd said to him, teacher, tell my brother to divide the inheritance with me. So this guy, he sees Jesus, and this may seem pretty weird, not knowing context and culture, but it wasn't uncommon for rabbis during this time for them to get involved in some of these family matters and to split this up. But there's things that you say, and there's things that you don't say that are some stories behind the story. Right? Has somebody ever asked you, what's wrong? And you tell them, but maybe that is something that's wrong, but there's something way deeper. You ever been there? You can't be real. You're afraid of what people are going to say. This guy asking Jesus, he knew about Jesus in such a way and knew about some of the miracles probably and things that Jesus had done. And so he wanted Jesus involved. And he says, hey, like, get with my brother, fix this, give me some of this. He wanted some of the blessings of God without following God. And we see that Jesus, knowing the heart, he says in verse 14, he says, friend, he said to him, who appointed me judge or arbitrator over you? He's saying, hey, like, you figure it out, not me. And a lot of times when it comes to us and possessions and time, whether possessions, whether it be time, material things, or money, it's easy to be defensive, right? It's easy to be defensive, and I want to say that I'm learning some of these things too. I'm 32 years old, and I'm not there yet. I'm just learning. So I want you to see that I want to be real sensitive in this. But it gets to this point, and there's a main point that I want you to write down today, and it's going to be here on the screen, but I want you to write this down. I will take steps to manage what God has given me. This isn't saying you've got it figured out. This isn't saying you're going to be perfect. But what I want you to walk away with today is knowing and being truthful and saying, you know, I'm going to take steps to manage what God has given me. And for me, I wasn't really taught some of these things. And then when it comes to money at times, growing up and not having a lot, it's easy to want to keep things for myself instead of give it away. Is anybody else with me? Or am I the only one that's like that? Or maybe it's time. You know, when it comes to church and things, you know, if you attended a service, served a service, used your gifting for the Lord, and attended small group, that would be a little over 200 hours a year when you have well over 5,000 hours in a year. But for some reason, it's hard to do some of that other stuff, right? Hello? Yeah. One thing that I love football. We have some friends at Auburn, and one of their big football games every year. And if you're thinking, why does he like football? Well, I'm praying for you, okay? But one of their big games is called the Iron Bowl, and it's Auburn versus Alabama, and that's something that I wanted to do. But I got a call where it was somebody needed help. But the Iron Bowl's on. Come on now. I think what happens is when it comes to managing what God has given us, I think sometimes God wants to check our heart. Puts things in our path. Not to say that He don't know what we're going to do, but I think things happen so that we could check ourselves. Have you ever had to check yourself? There's that saying, check yourself before you wreck yourself, you know. So, yeah. So it, you know, I had to say, I could have had every excuse in the world. I had friends over watching the Iron Bowl. The Iron Bowl was on just by itself, but it could have been easy for me to say, you know, I will help you, but not right now. And can I be honest? A little bit of me thinks that that would have been a good choice. But me and my friend, we got in my car, and then went down, helped a guy out. But sometimes there's tensions that we have when it comes to managing what God has given us. And when it comes to that, a lot of times you've never probably heard that from a pastor or from somebody on a stage or something, and you felt like that's just your struggle that you just deal with. That's all of us, right? So I want to be open and share that, but when it comes to managing what God has given us, I think this is really serious. And there's this parable that we're going to read, in a parable, a story with a purpose. We're going to read this in verse 16. Well, in verse 16, look at this. Then he told them a parable. A rich man's land was very productive. And right now you're like, okay, I've known a little bit about this church stuff, and it says rich man, and I'm not rich, so I can breathe. Whew, at least that's not me. Well, just so you know, the majority of the world lives on less than $2 a day, and poverty in America, you're more likely to have a cell phone and a little bit of food versus other places, right? May not be what we want, but God, He's given us this amazing place to live called America, and it's easy to be ungrateful, right? But so don't think, well, this rich, just because we may not think that we're rich, there's this rich that it talks about at the end that's different than financially in possessions. It says the rich man's land was very productive. Verse 17, he thought to himself, what should I do since I don't have anywhere to store my crops? Verse 18, I will do this, he said. I will tear down my barns and build bigger ones to store all my grain and my goods there. Sounds like a good idea, right? Like, what I have is full, so let's tear it down. Let's build something bigger to store all that. Don't we do that here? Who can, let's see this. Can we be real fast? Who can park in their garage? Yeah, a few of us. And then when the garage gets full, we need a shed, a shop. I can't park in my garage. But here, he's like, this is what I'll do. I have so much. God's blessed me. I'm productive. And what I have is full, but let's tear it down. Let's build bigger, and let's have that. And then he goes on from there, and he says, then I'll say to myself, you have many goods stored up for many years. Take it, what? Take it easy. Eat, drink, and enjoy yourself. It's where this greed thing comes in. And have you ever thought, well, I just want to take it easy? Yeah. Why not? It'd be good. We need rest, right? We need rest. But it says, this is what I'm going to do. Verse 20. But God said to him, you fool, this very night your life is demanded of you, and the things you have prepared, whose will they be? You and I, God gives us things, whether it's possessions, God gives us time, God gives us talents. And I think we need to realize that God's done that and He wants us to use those for Him. Right? I think God's got something planned more for you than just to live another week not knowing what's going on. I think God puts people in your path that you can help so that they would know Jesus. Do you think that? I get it. I get the not feeling wanted, not feeling like when you grew up, a lot of childhood things. I get that. But I think it's easy just to live life and just to think, okay, this week, there's just Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and then I can breathe again. But isn't it easy to get in that routine? What if we woke up tomorrow and we say, God, I'm going to put you first. I'm going to read Scripture and pray. Like, I think our week would be better. But there's this struggle where sometimes with possessions and time and talents that we forget. Like this, we see in Luke chapter 12, verse 20, God said to him, hey, your life is demanded of you. And there's a judge, and the judge is not here. I'm not your judge, and you're not my judge. God is our judge. And I think God knows where we're at. I know God knows that. And I know that God knows when we're taking steps. And I don't know exactly what's going through your mind right now. Because when we talk about giving things away, like your time or money or things like that, it gets really tense. And then what happens is there's shame and there's guilt. Listen, that a lot of those things are not from God. God knows, He knows this. He knows that you are here today. You watching online, God knows that you're watching. And that's a step, isn't it? Wouldn't it be good to know for God to say, hey, I know a lot's going on, but you're on the right track. Wouldn't that be good? Managing what we have and what God's given us, that's how we know we're going down the right path. Not saying we have it together, not saying that we're perfect at that or anything, but knowing that, hey, just like this parable, this story with a purpose, here's the purpose, that our life is going to be demanded of us, and God is going to judge everything that we do. There's hope in Jesus. Any wrong that I've done, Jesus forgives that. I have faith and believe, ask for forgiveness. God forgives that. And for you, maybe something you've wasted in the past, maybe you've wasted things all last week. God can forgive you for that. God did not send His Son into the world to condemn the world, but to save the world, John 3:17, right? Like, that is good. It's not based on guilt or shaming people to do things, but look at this. When it comes to my life, I'm learning a lot of this, and for many of you, you may think, and people tell us, tell my wife, Nicole, and I, well, I wish we had the faith that you had to quit everything and move thousands of miles away and all this, but I think I'm just on the surface, because here's what I know. I know God, the maker of heaven and earth, says, Zach, I'm going to use you this week. And He tells you, I'm going to use you this week. Trust me. Give things away. Give your time away. Use your talent. Give your money away. Do it. I've given it to you, but sometimes it's hard to trust God. But I love what happens. Let's read it. I want to get ahead of myself. Verse 21. Look at this. It says, "That's how it is with the one who stores up treasure for himself and is not rich towards God." You know, we may not have a lot now, and there's tensions whenever it comes to, well, if we give money away, then we will be the poor people. Anybody ever heard of this guy named David Platt? He's a guy, he wrote this book. I was in a room with David Platt, around 50 people, and he was talking about people's journey, and what they wanted was to give away 50% of their finances that they get. That takes a lot of commitment. You know it? Like, I started hearing some of these stories, and it's like, I start sinking in my seat. I'm like, I don't know, 50%. I'm like, then there's the thing when it comes to giving where we tithe and give financially. And, you know, God's blessed our church, even though that we just started, God's blessed our church. And because you give financially, we're able to do this. And y'all are doing it like we're doing it. God's doing it. He's allowing us to continue to do this thing. Like, isn't this, I mean, that's pretty amazing, right? But when it comes to finances, it gets tense because it's easy to say, well, a tenth, what that is, a tithe is 10%. Then it's easy to say, well, that's Old Testament. Well, here's New Testament. We're to give it away. We're to be generous. We're to be channels of blessings, not reservoirs. Has God ever used somebody to help you out? More than likely. More than likely, God's put somebody in your path, whether it was a parent, grandparent, neighbor, friend. But know this. Hey, does it get tense when you talk about money? When it talks about giving it away? God, I don't even have enough to go. Something, and I want you to see is the New Testament is much more than 10%. It's all in. It's saying yes to Jesus and no to self. I can be selfish. I want to be selfish. And how I act at times can be selfish, can be greedy. But that's what this is talking about. But something I want you to invest in your spiritual bank account and see and to be rich towards God, not just here. But we get concerned because it's like, God, so many other people are taking up my time. So much, my talent, I know you've given it to me, but that takes up more time. I can barely make my bills now, much less give something. I think managing what God has given us matters. But to manage what God's given us, we have to realize that it's not ours. And here's a shift. Here was a shift in my life whenever I realized God gave me, and I say this a lot, but that God gave me breath. He gives me a heartbeat. God gave me strength to have a job. When I realized that He did it and not me, it's not hard to give it away because it's not mine to begin with. It's His. Then there's the part where, well, if I spend time with people, then they are just going to hurt me. Have you ever been vulnerable with somebody and they use that to hurt you? Yeah. We're not better than Jesus, and they crucified Jesus. Right? They spit on Him, the maker of heaven and earth. God. They spit on Him. What do you think they're going to do to us? We may get hurt. but let's be rich towards God. You think that's better? All right, y'all are either really freaked out or you're thinking I'm never coming again or something. But here's the main point. I want you to go back to it and write it down if you didn't. I'm going to manage, I will take steps to manage what God has given me. And when it comes to time, I don't think wasting time is something that God wants us to do. I think He wants us to live on purpose, for a purpose. I think He wants us to wake up and say, you know what? I expect you to use me today, and I expect tomorrow, I expect this, and I pray this, and this is scary to pray, but I pray, God, put somebody in my path that I can share how good you are. That's scary. Guess what? I expect God to do that. And guess what? He does. God, He is God over all. He's sovereign over all. He puts us where we live, where we work. He allows us to do that so that we can share about Him. And something that's really good, I want you to think about action steps for you. What steps does God want you to take? Maybe you're not a follower of Jesus. Maybe you're realizing that relationship is far more important than you realize. Maybe it's putting it there. Or maybe it's saying, you know what, maybe I am a follower of Jesus, but I've never taken the next step into declaring to the world, and I've never been baptized. Maybe that's your next step. We'd love to help you in that. But maybe your next step is figuring out, all right, what steps does God want you to do? Maybe it's to host a small group. Maybe it's to lead a small group. Maybe it's to play in the band or do something in the band one time a month. Like, maybe it's something. But know this, you are much more valuable than what you think. God gave you life and He gave you breath. Let's use it for Him. Do it for Him. But how we protect ourselves in some of that is we have to pray. We have to read Scripture. And then if we do that, God's pouring into us, and for us to pour out, we can keep going. Without that first part, we can't. It's hard. It's tough. But I'm going to pray. If you'd love to talk, we'll have people in the back, and the band's going to come up. But there's these last couple songs that's going to be really good. But I want you to figure out what steps God wants you to take, what you want to do, and realize this, that you are on a right track because you're here. I think that's encouraging. God doesn't bring shame. God doesn't bring this worldly guilt, but He wants us to have a relationship with Him. So I'm going to pray. If you want to talk, we'll be in the back. Love to pray with you. So let's all bow our heads together, and the band's going to come up, and we're going to